Good morning once again, everyone, and welcome back to the track of powerful brands. You're still with me, Maria Monique, and I will be your host for today. We have a very exciting presentation coming up. But before we go to our presentation, again, we encourage you guys to actively participate today as our knowledge partner Manning is offering 5 lucky attendees the chance to win the ebook Demand Forecasting Best Practices, and they will be awarding the most active attendees who rate sessions, leave comments and questions. So please feel free to interact with us. Send your questions over to the chat box, and I will be happy to share them over with the speaker. Now, onto our speaker, Kotryna Kurt. She is the founder of a consulting company called Linkedist, which helps other businesses grow with the power of LinkedIn marketing, as you can already tell from their company name, marketing, advertising, and sales. She is also an active contributor and a thought leader on LinkedIn, where she talks about entrepreneurship, leadership, sales, and marketing. For the last 6 years, Kotryna has delivered 300 plus company and public workshops and helped different European accelerators educate their startups about marketing and sales. Now, for all of you B2B marketers out there, this is going to be a very exciting session for you because, as you know, LinkedIn is a playground for many B2B brands, but in the long run, it should become a platform bringing visible results and exponential growth. So in this session, things like growth hacking on LinkedIn and community building will be discussed. Kotryna, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much for the intro. All right, let me try to share my screen with all of you here today. Okay, I think we are rolling. All right, so hello everybody. It's so nice to see all of you. Even though I don't see you physically, I still believe there's a lot of eyeballs watching this presentation. So for all of you, hello. In this short presentation, we will talk about B2B marketing growth and different growth tactics, but those tactics can also actually be applied for B2C brands. So if you're working for a B2C brand, if you're managing one, you can still stick around and you'll find some valuable tips for your business as well. Since we don't have too much time, I will not go into depth of some of the points that much as I could, but what we will have is some time for the Q&A at the very end, which is why I encourage you, if you still have some questions, if some points are not clear, to ask your questions in the chat, and then we'll be able to answer those. And as you know, you've already heard a little bit about me. I am a startup mentor. I have my company called Linkedist, and my whole life for the last 8 years has been, surrounded by LinkedIn and LinkedIn as a social media platform and people from LinkedIn and so forth. So I have witnessed this platform going from a very small platform in a way that it had like content creators that you could count on fingers, the amount of the content creators that were on the platform. And now till this day, where we have loads of content every single day, we have a lot of different content creators, and it's a completely different game. And for the last few years, of course, I've worked together with the team with a lot of different businesses and companies. Some of them you might recognize. They're very big organizations. Some of them are smaller ones. But nonetheless, all of the tactics, all of the things that I will advise you today are accumulated from all of the work that we have done with all of these companies, no matter they were small or big companies. When we're talking about LinkedIn growth strategies, there are many of them. We can talk about some smaller ones, smaller steps that you can do every day. For example, connecting with people. But for me personally, this kind of falls into these 4 pillars. So you can grow your brand through personal branding, activating just every single person in the company, but individually, right? You can encourage them to work on their brands. You can also use employer branding tactics where you are more working with a group of people, or you're working with, let's say, brand ambassadors, and there's like a brand program involved and so forth. Another way how you can grow your brand is by creating content, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And I'll tell you, what kind of content works better. And also there's the paid part. Now with the paid part, I won't dig deep into that one because it's a way to grow where you need to invest money. And basically, if you do invest money, you can get followers, you can get clicks, you can get downloads and whatnot, right? You can get new leads. So that's another part of this game because it's a paid one, right? But organically, by paying with your time, even though time is also valuable, you can grow mostly with personal branding, employer branding, and company content. And now I will deep dive into each of these different topics, and will explain to you a little bit about each of them, and share some good tips that you can use for your brand. So let's start with personal branding. Now, a lot of the times when I enter into an audience, when I have like 100 people in the room, or even more or less, and I ask them a question, how many of you have a personal brand? I only see like a few hands that are being raised. Now, till this day, still, even though personal branding is such a buzzword, and or maybe have been for the last 2 years, still not everybody understands what it is. So, personal branding and your personal brand is everything about you, right? It's the way you look, it's the way you talk, it's the way you present yourself, it's also the way you communicate. And since COVID happened and Corona was all around the world, what gained more importance was our personal branding online. So our brand is actually divided into two different parts. One is the physical appearance, a physical personal brand, and the other one is the virtual one. So on LinkedIn, of course, we have our virtual persona, we have our virtual personal brand, which is why it is very important to, at the end of the day, make sure that you have the right impression, or you're making the right impression on everybody who visit your profile. And in simple words, personal brand is your reputation, right? So everything you have about yourself, if I could go to your LinkedIn profile right now, if I could go to Google and type your name and last name, whatever I would find about you, that would be a part of your reputation. Let me give you an example. Just a few weeks ago, or not even longer ago, I was trying to hire a new person for the team. And funny fact, but I also not only checked their LinkedIn profile and other social medias, but also their TikTok. And what I found was not very relevant to the business that we're doing. So at the end, it turned out to be like a negative thing for that person. So your reputation needs to be managed, and you always need to think about how will people who find you see you. And in the same way, when people in the company are representing the company through their personal profile, it can really help the company grow. One simple example here is also that a lot of the times when we think of a company, we know exactly the person in our circle that we can associate that company with. If I think of a business in my close circle that I am aware of, and that I know that business, I know what they're doing and what they're all about, and there is nobody that comes to my mind, then they don't have a spokesperson. They don't have a person who can actually speak for the business through their profile. If you look at Lego's CEO right now, you can see that he is creating a lot of content on LinkedIn. Whether that content is being posted by him or being posted by one of his members in the marketing team, that's not for us to know. But the thing is that they're treating it as another channel to grow Lego's brand. So that's exactly what I mean when I talk about, having a strong personal brand, having a person in the team, in the company, who can be the spokesperson for your business and who will be immediately associated with the business that you're trying to do. And the statistics are that 85% of all people actually meet us virtually first. And they also meet our brands first virtually most of the time, right? It's not like these days a lot of IT companies or any other B2B companies are having huge billboards and constantly bombarding us with TV ads. Some are, but a lot of them are not. And where do we meet these companies? We meet them on Google search. Maybe they're running Google ads. We meet them on LinkedIn and on other places, right? And we also meet them through people's profiles who are working at the company. So again, that is why it is very important to have a person that you can point to and say, yes, this is the person that is representing that business. And again, with every person's profile who are working in the company, uh, they are representing the business that they're working for. And another interesting thing, and this kind of ties back to thought leadership, is that when there are people or when there is a person communicating a lot on LinkedIn and representing the business or the company that they're working at, it actually increases trust. So 89% of all decision makers, and this was a research done by LinkedIn and Edelman, said that if there is a person communicating from another organization, they trust that organization much more, and that increases their trust. And another interesting statistic is that, all of us here, we're trying to make it work. We're trying to sell, we're trying to, get more business for our companies. And at the end of the day, actually, thought leadership is going to bring you more sales and more leads, because 49% of all decision makers say that thought leadership and people who create content influence their decision to make a purchase, to make that deal. And that is simply because there's this whole psychology behind it, where exactly, if you want to buy something and exactly who is the person to go to, and you see that that person is being active, communicating, and so forth, you know exactly whom you will blame if something is gonna go wrong. So you immediately feel much more safe, and you trust that organization even much more, even though not necessarily they will actually give you a better product or a better service. So these are some of the reasons why, again, thought leadership and creating content and finding that person that people can connect with your brand is super, super important. And there was a research done in Holland, actually, by a company called Connected Circles. And what they have been doing, they have been looking at different brands and their C-level executives, right? So at the point of research, a company called Santander, that's a huge bank in the UK, had over 1 million followers, right? And their chair, Anna, had 289,000. Yet still, every time she would make a post, she would get 2,000 more percent more engagement, right? That's a lot. Another example was from Volkswagen. Everybody knows this company, right? So at the point of research, the company had 861,000 followers. Their chairman, Herbert, he had 114,000. Now, every time on average he would make a post, he would still get 400% more engagement than the company post. Let's look at the final example, IKEA. Everybody knows IKEA. I bet all of us have at least one item from IKEA. The research showed that even though IKEA is a brand having huge brand awareness, right? Having loads of people knowing about this brand and having 1.6 million followers on LinkedIn, and their CEO had, Jesper, had 37,000 at the point of research. Still, he in his post would get 300% more engagement. So at the end of the day, this only showed with this research and a lot of other research is done around the topic, that no matter how strong the brand is, even if you take the most strongest brands like IKEA is definitely recognizable. You know, everybody knows IKEA's colors. If I would show you this combination, you would probably recognize the brand already without even, seeing the letters and so forth. But still, people that represent the business are having better results. Simply that. And at the end of the day, that is why a lot of these brands are also investing into people channels now. And again, finding that spokesperson to represent them. And one final statistic is if you're looking at comments and interactions, engagement, when people leave a comment under the post, you can see that comparing brand and the leader of the company, leaders get many more comments. And simply again, because people want to engage with people and they're not engaging that much with brands themselves. I would say we could take LinkedIn out because it's totally biased. But if we're looking at all the other statistics, we can see that even if we're looking at IKEA again, there's way bigger amount of comments that a leader gets than a brand itself. And if we're looking at LinkedIn in general as a platform, right? Right now they have more than 900 million members. That's a lot. Just a few months ago, it was 870 something million. So as you can see, in a few months, it gained so many more millions of followers. And again, it continues to grow very fast, and it is getting harder and harder to, you know, get your voice out there, and it's also getting harder to expose your business and your brand. But with the right messaging through these personal channels, it can be way faster. It can help you much more to grow your brand, and it can be way faster for you to reach your audience. All right, another thing what you can do when it comes to growing your brand on LinkedIn is of course employer branding, which is very closely tying together with personal branding that I just talked about. But there are a few differences that I wanted to tell you about. So today, power is gained by sharing knowledge, not hoarding it. I love this quote, right? It's a quote by Dharmesh Shan, and he is HubSpot's cultural code manager. And basically, I in general love HubSpot's LinkedIn. If you have to check out some kind of other brands' LinkedIn's profiles and get inspired, I would really recommend checking out HubSpot's, because HubSpot is doing an amazing job in creating a community. But this is actually the quote that I totally stand by, because a lot of the time still I would feel like a lot of business owners or people who are working at companies, they're afraid to share. They are afraid that somebody's gonna see that knowledge, that information, they will take it, they will use it. But in this day and this age, there's so much information that if you really want to become better than somebody, you can easily do that yourself, right? By going and like learning a lot through YouTube videos and so forth. So at the end of the day, it's actually a lot about sharing what you know to convince the potential buyer or potential user to join your business or to buy your product. And when we're talking about employer branding, there are a few things that you can do when it comes to creating strategies around it. So first of all, employer branding can be strengthened through LinkedIn content, right? So if you, let's say, pick like a group of people, now they will be your brand ambassadors. And what they can do, they can write articles, they can write posts, they can do LinkedIn lives, they can do audio events, and they can also write newsletters. Another activity, what they can also do is LinkedIn messaging, right? So not only being ambassadors through the content that they create, but also messaging and creating that stronger bond. So they can be messaging potential clients, potential new hires, potential collaborators. And a lot of the times, people forget that LinkedIn is a social media. So at the end of the day, people come to social media platforms to be social. If you are only creating content, and if you're creating content that is supposed to help your business, you still need to engage, and you still need to leave comments and interact with other brands or interact with other people and so forth. So that social aspect is sometimes lacking. And from my own experience, we had one client that we used to work with, and we would generate amazing results with the content that we were producing for that client. There would be a lot of people, liking the post, and it was the CEO of the company. So a lot of people were interested in hearing more from that person, and it was like a up and coming fintech company, a lot of people. And he would never engage back. And sometimes in these situations, you can't really engage back unless you are that person, right? So we can do as much, we can supply the content, but it is up to you, it is up for all the other colleagues, all the people to engage again, and cultivate that discussion. So as much as content is important, messaging and engaging, like commenting, liking, tagging others, resharing your posting, is even more important, because at the end of the day, you can be creating the best content ever, but if people see that you never respond, you never reply, you never like their comment, maybe you don't even see those comments, they will stop engaging. And when we're talking about, how much you should focus where, my advice would be to kind of split it in these percentages, right? So if you, let's say, are activating a group of ambassadors, you're strengthening your employer branding, and you're asking them to be more active on LinkedIn, this is where you should encourage them to focus. So 50% of the time that they have for this on creating content, 30 on messaging, and trying to have discussions privately, and then 20 on commenting, liking, tagging, and resharing. So this is how you should go about this one. And then another thing that I wanted to mention, and I really like this graph because I believe it really depicts a deeper meaning behind, going into employer branding. Um, let's start, with the fact that employer branding is something that is helping lots of companies not only to get new people on board, but also to generate a lot of new leads. So it is helping a business to grow, and is helping business to generate better results. Now, what is this table all about? So there was this model made by Miles and Mangold. You can find the model. I have a source at the bottom of the slide, so you can find the original model, but it all looks exactly the same. When we're thinking about an organization, usually the organization starts when a brand is being built, right? When a business is being started, it starts with organization's mission and values. It has some kind of a direction, somewhere where the business wants to go. So it has a desired brand image. It kind of creates something, even though there's nothing existing there yet, right? You want to look like you are a business that is has having a good reputation, is a business that is, having the best offers and so forth. This is the desired brand image. How is that image usually being communicated? Well, it is being communicated inside through HR managers, through coworkers, through other people in the company, or externally, right? You're using PR, you're using some kind of other forms of advertising. And with all of that, this is all both internal talks inside the company, how your colleagues are seeing the company, and also the advertising. They're kind of forming the way that people think of your brand. And then the way that people think and see your brand is actually creating your employer brand and employee brand image. So at the end of the day, when people are communicating more, when people have the right understanding of what your brand is, that can lead to all of these outcomes, right? So higher turnover, employee satisfaction, customer loyalty, reputation, and so forth. So with this slide, what I wanted to show you is that employer branding and overall creating that brand image on LinkedIn or on any other social media platform, it has a way, it is a way longer process, right? It's not that you can just come up with something that you want to look reputable or you want to look great in front of your clients, and all you need to do is like find a few people that they can communicate. But those people actually need to understand that you are like that you are as a business doing things as they see and as you want them to to communicate. We had a few examples where companies were asking people to communicate and create content, and those people were not believing the things that the business was telling them. So at the end of the day, if you really want to encourage your colleagues or your employees to post on LinkedIn, it also has to be it is a longer process, and it has to be communicated internally from different people. And this is an example of, when we went to one company in Denmark and used 5 people from the sales team. We kind of got them together and we asked them to write LinkedIn posts. And they were not, very much using LinkedIn every day today, but they had like 300 to 400 connections, followers, and were opening it once in a while, right? And they all created their own original, unique posts, and with those posts, we have gotten 13,000 views. And that was just in one day, right? Like activating a few colleagues from that IT company. So again, that's why employer branding is also a very important thing, because it can again activate not only one, but a lot of different people to become your brand ambassadors inside of the company. Not only, when companies work with influencers and they are, brand ambassadors, but actually you have a lot of them inside of your business. And these days, these years, for the last 1 year especially, like employer branding workshops, they became very popular, and that's what we've been very busy doing for the last 1 year, because companies actually finally understand the meaning of having brand ambassadors internally. And these are a few examples that I wanted to share with you. So, as you can see, when it comes to posting about your business, or when it comes to posting about something that is connected with the company, there can be posts about events, there can be posts about team, personal story, and some kind of tips. There can be posts about statistics, engaging with the audience, posts, where you have a poll. There can be posts about some news at the company, sharing your knowledge, or just talking about different trends. So, all of that is very valuable to your LinkedIn community, but at the same time can be connected with your brand. And the final thing that I wanted to mention to you, how you can grow your brand on LinkedIn, is, of course, through company content. And when we talk about content, it's important to remember one thing that I think a lot of brands forget, and that is that every single company has the same opportunities to create a lot of different content types and use these different types to create content that is unique. What I see that a lot of brands are doing is that they're only creating posts that are picture and a text, picture and a text. That's all they're doing. And at the end of the day, LinkedIn is really rewarding those pages that are, using a lot of different features and functions that LinkedIn is having on the platform. So when you're thinking of your content strategy for your business, try to also think about the different content types that LinkedIn is offering that you can use. For example, as audio event, I still haven't seen too many businesses utilizing this function, but it's out there. And it's possible to do audio events as a business. It's possible to do LinkedIn lives. So that's again why I would encourage that. When we're talking about LinkedIn content strategy, I want to share this strategy that we're using with a lot of our clients, and also a strategy that seems to be working really well compared to other ones, is 411 strategy. So what does this strategy mean? Basically, if you're creating content on LinkedIn, you need to think about that your last 6 posts should be a mix of 4 educational pieces, one company insights, personal company stories, work culture focused content piece, and one promotional content piece. So this basically means, it doesn't mean that that there have to be 4 educational content pieces and one, but you can mix them up, right? It just means that your last 6 posts have to be falling into these different topics. Why is that important? I do see a lot of company pages where you come in into the page and you're seeing that it's all about the brand, it's all about the products, it's all about their services, and there's nothing about the industry that they represent, or there's nothing about why these products are good for the earth, so to say, or for the planet, or some other educational topics, right? So a lot of the times people decide not to follow a page, or not to engage, because they just feel like they're being attacked by all of this promotional content, which is why you should mix up your content if you have something that you want to promote, together with different educational pieces, talking about the upcoming trends in your industry, talking about um, some research done, results, and so forth, talking about your case studies. That's also very much important, and educating the end user. And when you show to the users that your page is actually not about constantly talking about the different services and products, but it is actually a lot about education, then you start seeing followers go up. That's the pivotal moment for a lot of brands that we worked with, when they actually switch from being totally only about themselves and into a news feed, where there is a lot of valuable content for the user. Then everything changes. So this is, I think, this is a great strategy for a lot of brands. And when we're looking at these different topics, here are some questions, some things how you can think about these topics. So, for example, if it's an educational piece of content, then maybe you want to talk about your newest trends in your industry. Why should everyone take care of the existing technology, and so forth? If you're writing about work culture, what does it mean to work at your company? What are the benefits of working at your company? And if you're trying to write a piece that is more promotional, then maybe you're offering something for free. Maybe you're offering a free consultation. Maybe you're writing about 5 reasons why you should why other people should try your product, and how you can help businesses solve their problems. So these are some, tips how you can go about these topics. And these are some examples also that I wanted to share when it comes to, content created by not only the company, but also people. So if we look at EY, I guess an example, a great company that a lot of you know about as well, we're seeing that the trend there with their people is that they're creating content and it is getting a lot of engagement. But for example, their content is very much company branded, right? If we're kind of getting back to the different tactics. If we're looking at Starbucks as another example, we can see that their content that is coming from people is very much not Starbucks branded. These pictures, they are made by people themselves and they're not branded with their colors and fonts and so forth. So different brands on LinkedIn choose to engage in a different way. And kind of getting back to, oh wait, I think I have one more example. Vinted, right? A company that some of you are also aware of. Wanted to show these two cute photos of dogs in the office. But again, is trying to show in a different way, how they're feeling at the business, how they're feeling at the company. And you don't always have to have these polished pictures and have only serious pieces of content. It can also be a little bit more laid back. So at the end, coming back to, company content versus people content that you have versus employer posts and employee posts, it's important to remember that your personal page is also a channel for your business to communicate, through. And also for the business page, what is important to remember that it's not only a channel, that it is also an educational place. So these are, I think, the two biggest takeaways, that a lot of people think that, the company page is only for corporate content and content that is about the services, the products, and that the personal page is nothing to do with the business. It's just, to be out there. But it's actually wrong, as you can hear. And here are a few examples if we kind of get back to the company content. As you can see, one is coming from CloudVisor, a company that is a software company. And you can see content that they have. I know it's only visuals here, but it's not only selling, right? It's some invitations to join an event. It's telling about the company. It's telling about the, different other brands that they work with or have integrations with. Um, they're having client spotlight. They're having, tips, which is educational piece of content. If we look at another example, like Nordic Secondary Fund, it's a VC company. Again, they are investing into startups and they could only talk about that, right? They could only have like posts featuring different startups that they have invested in. But they also have founder spotlight. They have posts about the company, people from the company. They also have like posts about investment criteria, which is educational, right? They have posts where, they have quotes from the founders. So a lot of the educational content, which is leading to bigger follower rate. And of course, increases all the analytics and all the statistics if you're choosing to go this route. So let's wrap it up before we have some minutes to talk about, answer your questions and talk about other things. What I wanted to tell you is that when it comes to growth strategies on LinkedIn, there are a lot of ways to do that. There are, of course, a lot of third-party tools as well, which can help you to grow even faster. But if we're looking at the organic growth, it's important to focus on personal branding, thought leadership, professional online presence, having that spokesperson in your company. It's also important to focus on employer branding. So, doing internal workshops for the colleagues, creating ambassador programs, activating people, helping them with LinkedIn messaging campaigns. It's also important to take care of your company content, meaning that, creating a content strategy. I've shown you one today. Looking at your competitors and trying to find a humane way of communicating. And finally, paid, right? So looking into paid, we have LinkedIn ad campaigns and we have personal posts that you can sponsor in the near future as well. So these are some of the top strategies without going into too much in depth in them because we're running out of time already. And if you would want to get a certificate from today's short workshop, you can use this link and grab it. You can make a screenshot of it and later on claim your certificate. And also for all of the people who were participating in this session today, I have a discount code for a personal branding course. If you would want to take your personal brand to the next level, then you can go to linkedindiscourseacademy.com, use the code DME20, and grab your course with a big discount. It's quite cheap, I must say. That's where I put all my heart and soul into to share all of the tactics behind personal branding. And finally, something for free resources. We all like that, right? So if you want to learn more about copywriting on LinkedIn, how to write good posts, how to write good copies, you can scan this QR code and download the ebook. And another ebook, if you are a brand manager and you want to create a good, strong marketing strategy for LinkedIn, what I've already mentioned today, all of the resources are in this ebook. So again, you can just scan it, download it, and find a lot of different strategies for your brand. If you cannot access the QR code, you can go to linkedis.com and we have our ebooks there. All right, so thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed and I hope you learned a lot of new things.
Have a lot of questions for you today. We have a very engaged set of audience for you. I learned a lot from you today, so thank you so much. So, one of the questions, this was really interesting. What would you recommend for international company based in the US with one LinkedIn account? The problem is to get engagement in Europe, in specific countries like Germany, Austria, Switzerland, UK, etc., to have own regional accounts or to post from one company account in other languages to specific countries.
I think if you have enough resources and time, it would be also great to create showcase pages. And that's an option on LinkedIn as well. Instead of creating a full on company page, you can create a showcase page that is connected to your mother page. And basically, in that way, you could grow your other pages in those specific markets and have the location set to those markets. So people who would be looking for companies like yours in those markets would find you faster, right? Because right now, I bet your location is set to the US. So in this way, somebody from Germany would probably not stumble upon your company page on LinkedIn.
That's a good tip. Another one, what position in a company is the best to be a brand ambassador? Might be an ordinary employee more successful than a CEO? What's your experience with that?
There's definitely no right way how you can go about this. Everybody can be a brand ambassador in the business. We actually noticed that, sometimes marketing managers would come to us and say, hey, these are the people that we need you to activate. And some of those people would not even want to be brand
Mhm.
ambassadors. They would complain that they don't have time and so forth. And other times we would do a workshop with all of the employees from the business, and then a software engineer would come to us and say, hey, I actually want to create content, can you help me, can I become a brand ambassador? So it's not about pointing at somebody in the company and saying you have to do it and you have to do it, but rather getting those people, inspire them, and then see who actually wants to do it.
Because sometimes it's much easier to see who's willing than to volunteer for other people. That works better. That works
Yes.
better sometimes. Another interesting one: how do you ensure that employees who are more closely associated with your brand don't write anything that could harm the brand? So
So
maybe it's all about like how do you ensure employees don't write anything that would harm your company?
yeah, so this is again a question that I often get when it comes to companies that have you can buy, yeah, like our publicly listed companies, so to say. And in this case, if you're a bigger organization and you're somewhat afraid that somebody is going to write something that will damage your brand, then the easiest thing to do is to create uh, one pager with guidelines, or to create like a presentation, or talk to them, to talk to everybody, tell them what are the things that they should not discuss openly on their LinkedIn, and what are the topics that they can focus on, or what are the good and bad examples of like other brands, or people from other brands acting in a certain way on LinkedIn. So it's all about just educating them, and also giving them these guidelines or a handbook that they can always check and see if they're writing something that is not going to damage the brand.
Mm. It's about aligning them first, basically, when you put them on board to this ambassador program. We have other questions, but I think we don't have the time anymore. So maybe, our audience could just reach out to you separately, maybe through your LinkedIn profile. But we thank you so much for this very insightful presentation that you did for us today. And we'll see you again next time. Thank you so much,
Thank you
Kotryna.
so much. Have a good day. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
This is all we got. Remember the revolution in our minds. This is all we got.
Lock me out of this life institution. I am angry and